Okay, this is Task Putty. Task Putty is a tool that lets you draw any business process and immediately start executing it. It's all cloud-based and it runs in any browser. So let's get started. Let's create ourselves a process. Um, this process will be to manage the enrollment of students at a school. Right, so the first step in that process is perhaps that someone has applied. Next step would be have they paid the deposit, and then is all their documentation in order, and then we probably accept them after that. Accept. Let's also just add a spot here where they might get rejected if their documentation is not correct. Reject. And we might put them on a waiting list. Waiting list if yeah, if we don't have space. Oh, sorry, these are supposed to be the other way around. We check the documentation, then we wait for deposit. Right, so let's connect these up just to suggest the flow of the process. After documentation, we check for deposit. After deposit, we accept, or we possibly waitlist. The documentation is not correct, or there's some reason to reject, then we reject. Alright, so I've just drawn my business process, very easy to understand, very easy to change. Now I can immediately start executing it. So let's assume a little boy called Bob R applies at our school. So we just drag a card from the stack, and that represents his application. If you had a web form that people filled in order to apply, that could inject cards directly into the stack. So let's create one or two more. A little girl, Sarah H, and another boy, Mikey P. Now, these cards then move through the process. Various different people involved in performing the different steps would do this, and they all see the same board as you see over here. Okay, now this is great. It lets you keep track of the state of each application, but of course this is not very useful unless there are some data fields behind this. So in the example here, let's collect age. It's a useful one. Another useful one in this context perhaps is gender, and that in this example is boy, girl, done. And then let's collect the person's ID book, copy of the ID, and we'll call that ID. Oops, sorry, that's the wrong type of field. File field, sorry. ID. Okay. Right. And then when they get to the deposit stage, we want to explicitly track, has someone checked that the deposit has been received? So we'll call it received. And perhaps we have a reference to the bank statement line in our bank statement reference in our accounting system. All right, so we've now defined some fields. That means when you drop a card over here, let's call this boy Graham B. Immediately this pops up, asks me for his age, gender, and his ID. So I can upload that file, choose, I think I had an ID copy here. Yeah, there we go. All right. So I've uploaded a copy of his ID, and that will travel with this record. If I click on the next one, I can immediately sort of start capturing over there. Let's say this one is also a boy. Okay, very easy for data captures to work. Whenever you put a new card in that bin, you'll see you just have to fill in the necessary fields. Okay, another Sarah M. All right. Okay. One thing that's important in processes like this is to enforce compliance. So let's take this deposit step. So I move through to the documentation. My documentation is correct. Then I move to the deposit step. Now we want to be sure that we actually check that the deposit is received. So we force the person doing the process to actually check that checkbox. The nice thing about Task Buddy is everything is in the history. So if I go to history, I can see the full history of this card. Okay, I'm logged in as Simon at the moment. You can see me there. And I create, you see this is the whole history of the item. It was created, the name was changed to Graham P, the age was changed to 4, boy uploaded the ID copy, moved it to docs, moved it to deposit, and finally checked that it was received. So you can see exactly who did it, exactly when as well. So it's great for enforcing processes. Right. And of course, you can. One question we get often is, this looks great, helps you see the process, but if you're dealing with lots of applications, how do you do that? So I've just put all the cards in the one bin here. Well, obviously you can adjust the size of the bin. Oh, no, sorry, that's not a bin. Yeah, there we go. Adjust the size of the bin. Like that. The other thing you can do is if you double click a bin, you get to a more sort of Excel type view where you can see and you can deal with sort of thousands of cards. There's also another view where the diagram is de-emphasized and you can sort of see all of the cards over here. So that's sort of more for people working within a certain part of the process. Okay, and that is really the basics or the essence of Task Buddy. I want to quickly run through some of the other features. To do that, let's have a quick look over here. This is another customer. They've made use extensively of what we call data tables. But before I get into that, let me show you their process. They use it to track maintenance on machines in a plant. So when they drop a card over here, it pops up and it asks them to fill in this job card. And let's have a quick look here. Department, VDoc, and you'll see plant over here has a whole bunch of different fields to fill in. But we've also configured their system to actually display the job number. So that job number was auto-allocated. We got the next one as we drop the card. And when I choose the plant over here, you'll see the code for that plant appears on the front of the card. Okay. So instead of filling in arbitrary names on the card, you can derive that from the fields on that card. Then they use a feature called data tables, which is basically almost like Excel backing the fields behind these items. So here you define all your plants, you type them in as you would in Excel, and then they can be used as in these drop downs over here. So you've got sort of the full power of Excel behind this awesome visualization of your process. Another quick thing I'd love to show you is the email integration. Here's an example of a process where our customer is a property maintenance company. So they have units or apartments that they manage. And so here's an example of a broken geyser. If I if I just click that email icon there, I should pop it up. So there you can see the person sent in an email, broken geyser, unit 22, and right from within Task Buddy, the person replied, sending a plumber, keep calm, and so there I can send a new reply, I can add an attachment, etc., etc. So all of your email correspondence is tracked on that ticket, which is great. Another very cool feature is we've also used it with these guys, is the calendar feature. So you'll see these are jobs here that are scheduled for repair. I've created a calendar with that, so those two jobs now are scheduled to happen on certain days. If I click that, I get that normal view. So you see that job is scheduled for the 10th. If I drag it now to the 19th, and I look at that again, you'll see it's now moved to the 19th. So the calendar view is basically taking this date and projecting it on the calendar, but also allowing you to adjust and move things around. Right, one more thing. If a process has more detail behind it, so take our enrollment process. say the confirmation of documents is complicated and has a whole bunch of sub-steps, you can basically define a sub-process, and then if I drill into that, I can go arbitrary levels deep as that process is, as complicated as it is. I can model it out. This is great for big organizations. We have multiple people working at different levels. Yeah. Then, of course, there's reporting as well, which we've used to quite good effect over here. This is the maintenance, the factory maintenance again. This is the report they print daily and they discuss in their daily meetings. Another feature they use is also scheduled items, because maintenance or machines are due for maintenance on a regular schedule. So if I click on any board, I click on schedule, I can actually schedule any item to appear on a schedule like this. And so when that time comes by, a new item automatically appears in here for the people to actually do. And then another great feature, which I will just look at very briefly, is the ability to define rules. So obviously, when an item arrives in a bin, you might want to automate, you might want to do something, send an SMS, an email, or something like that. So you do that by right-clicking and saying define rules. You can add an action rule, different triggers, and what these things should do, multiple of these, however you can really do complicated and interesting things in a very easy and visual way here. And that's it. That's the run through of the major features in Task Buddy. Thank you.